Today on Smackey's Garage, we're going to be replacing my fog light bulbs on my 2018 F-150 with some parts from F-150 LEDs. Now, I recently did their headlights and they look amazing. Now, with those, they're nice and cool white. Down here, I still have the yellowish halogen bulbs, and we're going to fix that. So in this video, we're going to do a full test of them, we're going to install them, and then we're going to go ahead and see how they compare to the stock fog lights on my truck. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these LEDs out. We're going to go ahead and look at them, and then we're going to set them up with a power supply so that we can look at how much power they actually draw. Now, this is important because I want to take a look at the resistor that they come with, because I want to see what temperature it actually gets up to. Now, F-150 LEDs suggest that this should be either mounted to something or moved away from plastic. And I want to make a decision on where do I want to put it, whether it gets mounted to the frame rail, some metal piece, or if it's going to get zip tied where it's not touching anything. I think this will help me make that decision. All right, so here are all the parts that you get. You get the LEDs themselves, which are just going to replace the stock ones, and then you get two of these. Now this is going to plug in between your LED and your wire off the truck, and there's this resistor here. You can see labeled F-150 LEDs right there. So we're going to take this, we're going to go ahead and do a test on it. My guess is if it melts plastic, it's probably going to get pretty hot, but we'll just take a measurement of it and see what we want to do. I did buy some thermal paste that if I need to put it on, I can. So I actually went with a pad because it's easier to use a pad in areas that it might get wet. Because if it does get wet, the paste might wash away, the pad will just stay. Now the LEDs on them look really nice. It's a nice sealed piece. You can't touch the LEDs. So you have the 4 up top, and then you have many around the outside. After we install these, I'm really interested to see what pattern it gives me and how it looks on the ground, but I'm excited for it. Let's go ahead and let's hook this up to the power supply that I have back here, and then we'll be able to see exactly how much power it's drawing. Now, this is the power supply that we're going to be using. It's an inexpensive one that I picked up off of Amazon, and it seems to work good. After hooking them up and setting up the power supply, powering up the bulb, they pretty much jumped right up to 200 degrees. So there is a lot of power going through these LEDs and through this resistor. So just looking at it, I have a feeling that I'm better off mounting this somewhere rather than having it hang behind the plastic. So let's go ahead, let it get to steady state, and then we'll see what temperature that's at. Now looking at the amount of power that's going through it, there's about 28 watts, so around 2.3 amps going through this resistor at any time. So that's where the heat is all coming from. All right, now I waited for this to go for a little while, and the final temperature it got up to was around 300 degrees, and then the electrical tape that I was using to hold the thermocouple on started to melt, so I took it off. But when I looked at it, it ended up getting close to 300 degrees. Seeing them get that hot, I think what I want to do is mount them to the chassis and put a thermal pad in between it. Now, by doing it this way, it'll make sure that it gets the maximum amount of cooling, it'll get the air that's flowing by, and it'll also have that large heat sink of the chassis itself, or whatever brackets under there. So let's go ahead, let's take apart the truck, and let's take a look at exactly where these are going to install and how we're going to mount everything. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my wheel off because it gives me a better camera shot, but you can see just it's tight in there because we need to take this inner fender off or peel it back. And by having my wheel off, it gives me a better angle for the camera plus more room to work. It's up to you if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, you can just turn everything to the left side or right side, get it out of the way. Now, if you haven't watched my video on it, I have a video on why I switched to one-piece lug nuts. I'll make sure that it's linked as a card in the top right of this video or the top left. But it's been a good change, and one of the things I've learned is don't use impacts on lug nuts, especially two-piece ones. All right, now with the tire off and that turned into my chair, we can go ahead and take these off. Now, the easiest way to do it is to take off 1, 2, then there's some up here, plus there's a pin over here that you just have to twist and pull out. So after all those are out, you can go ahead and just pull this back. We should have access to the fog light. I'm using a 5.5 millimeter for these. You could use the Imperial equivalent if you want. Then with that done, all I need to do is peel this back. Then I'm going to use something just to hold this back as I'm working in that area. With this peeled back and being able to see in there, we're going to go ahead and take a look. Now I can see the fog light straight ahead in there. That's what we're going to be taking out. To remove the bulb, all we got to do is twist it and then remove it. So twist and remove. So you can see this bulb is here. I think what I'm gonna do and how I'm gonna set this up is I'm gonna put the bulb in and I'm gonna mount the resistor here on this bumper rail. I haven't decided, probably right here, going straight and forward and back if there's enough room, but it looks like there's a good spot for it here. There's plenty of other spots where you could mount it if you wanted to. I mean, you can mount it up here as well, but I think having it here on this chassis piece that holds the front, or the bumper piece, is probably the best place. And then seeing where this is, I'll probably have to mount it on the top just so that it doesn't touch any plastic. All right, so the problem that I have with putting that bracket up top, which I didn't see before, is there's really not enough room for a right angle drill, at least the one that I have with the bit. So if you go underneath the bumper bracket, you can still install it and you don't need a right angle drill. Now they do supply some self-tapping screws. I'm gonna use them. I'm just gonna make sure that I figure out what that inner diameter is, get the right drill bit size. All right, so it's an 1/8 inch drill bit. We're gonna go ahead and use this and then drill 2 small marks on it to mark it, and then I'll drill the holes. So underneath and looking up, you can see those 2 small pilot holes right there. That's where I'm gonna be mounting my resistor. Now we're gonna go ahead and cut the thermal pad for it. One thing to note on this is these holes are actually 1/8 inch, so you do need to open them up to the size of whatever screw that you're using to hold it in place. So with these being a 157 screw, I'm gonna open it up to 169, and then I should be able to just pass it straight through. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take these thermal pads that I bought. I'll link them in the description below. Now you don't really need to use a thermal pad here. You probably could get away just by using this. I mean, it's an aluminum, it's gonna make contact with the surface. This just makes it a little bit better contact. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cut 2 of these out, and then we're gonna use this on mine. But like I was saying, you don't need to do this on yours. Just being a rectangle, I'm gonna sit it underneath and I'm gonna go ahead and screw these in. So I'm gonna go ahead, take each one of these sides off, then try it out. There you go, you can see we have the big resistor in place. You can see the thermal pad sticking out a little bit. That's because, you know, as you compress it, it is gonna spread. That is completely normal. So now with that on, everything is connected and plugged in. I connected one side there, then the other side to the light itself. So let's go ahead and power this one up before we do the other one to make sure it works. So OEM one, and then the new one. Yeah, definitely a lot nicer of a color from it. Now that we have that one on, we're gonna go ahead and let's do the other one. All right, now the reason why I like this location here is because it's going to get airflow, and if it is raining, it's gonna get cooled by water or snow, whatever gets kicked up. The only thing I need to make sure is that the tire doesn't come in contact with the wires, so I'll probably just end up zip tying that in place. All right, so I got the lights on. You can definitely see one is significantly brighter than the other. F150 LEDs is on the left, OEM is on the right. That definitely is significantly brighter than that one. And let's take a look at the beam. All right, so here's what the beams look like with them. You can see on the left side, you have the OEM one that has a straight beam that's cut off low. On the right side, you can see the F150's LED that's up, kind of creating a ball up there. So it's definitely a different beam pattern than the OEM one. So we're gonna go ahead, put them both on the truck, and then we'll do a comparison. All right, let's check out how they look. So they definitely look pretty bright. Now those are just the fog lights that are down there, so significantly brighter than stock. It's definitely lighting up more than I'd expect. And here's a shot with the fog lights on the truck. All right, so just here, this is fog lights. Now I'll turn on the headlights. Yeah, the headlights are really bright. Just the fog lights. You can see some of the adjustment from the camera in there. So it is changing the brightness a little bit, and it is a little brighter than it actually looks. All right, so now I've fixed the ISO on the camera so that you can see what the difference in brightness is. So these here are just the fog lights, and you can see that they are definitely brighter than stock. Now if I turn on the headlights, which are LEDs, it is significantly brighter. So we go again, we got the fog lights, and then we got the headlights. So let's go ahead and check these out. Yeah, I mean, they do produce an extremely bright light. And the nice thing is when you look at them all together, you know, everything matches and everything looks good. It's a little bit humid out here, so you can see some of the artifacts from the light, but you can see overall just how good they look together. All right, let's get inside a little bit, get out of this hot, humid weather and talk about them. All right, now on these fog lights, I really like the white color that they put out. It definitely matches the headlights and it looks really good on it. The only thing that I do notice on them is they don't provide that sharp cutoff that you would see from a typical fog light. So the way it performs, it's more like a fog light slash off-road light, probably more towards the off-road light just because of the beam. Now it does provide a good amount of forward light, but like I said, it's not as focused as kind of the lights that were on there, so something to get used to. It's a nice upgrade to the look at the front of my truck. So thanks for tuning in this week on Smackey's Garage. I'll see you next time.